I'm going to talk about something tonight that I thought was interesting. I was thinking about a lot of the issues that people have been talking to me about lately, and a lot of it boils down to cost, the price of stuff. Everybody's saying, how do we get good quality beef, high quality protein, but not pay very much for it? And there's a lot of ways to lessen that impact on you as far as the cost of groceries and everything. And what the impact of what your decisions in the grocery store have on the environment. There's a massive impact when you make a decision on the environment, one way or the other. And there's a huge belief that we should go meatless. And I don't understand that exactly, because then that forces everybody to the thought process, well, we just eat what comes out of the grocery store and then go buy a bunch of processed foods. Not even vegetables all the way I can get behind. Let me say that differently. I can't even totally get behind all vegetables or things like that, just because of our farming practices in the United States. And I love farmers. I love rural people. I love their lifestyle. But this brings us to another thought, or at least it brought me to another thought. How do we make everything cheaper? How do we drop the price of everything? I think there's a way. Well, I'm sure there's a way to drop the price of everything in this country, in America, at the same time that we make ourselves safer around the world and become a major competitor. So, yeah, sounds like, wow, why aren't we doing this already? Well, there's some people that have tried this, and I'll explain why it's even though it's such a simple thought process, it's not like it's super complicated. I'm sure it's complicated to implement, maybe, but it's not. It's not like rocket science or anything. It's not like an idea somebody else has not come up with. But I will share at the end here why this hasn't been implemented. So first, implemented. So first, we're going to do is I'm just going to. There's one thing that. So I'm sorry, I'm stumbling all over the place. Energy. It takes energy to make or transport and sell any product, whether that's your groceries, whether that's housing materials. It doesn't matter what it is. You have to transport it, and it takes energy to produce it. So if we lower the cost of energy in our country, that would technically reduce the cost of everything all at once. Now, that isn't as simple as it sounds, but let me run you through this. Right now, let's go about this a different way. Here's a way I see our country can benefit America and the normal, hardworking people of this country at the same time, lower the cost that they have of living and create security worldwide more security worldwide for them anyway. And that is through energy. Now, I think about these things because I live out here in the West. I live in Montana. So when you look outside, the industries in Montana are oil, agriculture, mining. I mean, basically agriculture, mining and oil probably make more money than the agriculture side, but all of it plays a massive role. So how would we drop the cost of energy and secure the world? I think we have to understand right now there's a huge push to go all electric with everything. For some reason, we want to jump right on the electric bandwagon and create electric cars, and everything goes electric and use electric heat and everything. And so I looked up some numbers, and they're staggering. The amount, the increase in electricity that we're looking at using in the United States. It's absolutely staggering the jump from 2022 to 2023 usage of power. Where are we going to get this power? Our grid cannot handle it. We're not producing it, and it's creating a cost that's going up. The cost of energy that's going up is both in fuel, which is oil, and in electricity, which is produced by hydroelectric dams, coal, and nuclear energy. Also wind and solar. And that's where we're going to go back to the 30 by 30. Because the green initiatives, the thought process of let's make all this, let's use everything electric, and then where are we going to come up with the power? Oh, it's going to be solar and wind, right? So I was thinking about that today. Like solar and wind are not my favorite sources of energy, and I'll share my reasoning here. Number one, wind energy is absolutely a lost cause. It really is. I don't even know why we're still doing it. And when I looked it up, they're saying that the cost of energy from windmills is like ridiculously low. I don't know where they're getting these numbers because it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so here's one of the reasons why we have to create more power is that the US imported 56.9 terawatt hours of power in 2022. So I don't know if you know what a terawatt is, but it's 1,000 gigawatts, whatever that is. So we're 60 of these, basically 60 terawatts hours of power from Canada and Mexico. That's staggering. So we're now importing that much power, meaning we're using that much more than we're producing in this country. And then we wonder why it's so expensive every time we get our electric bill. That's because it costs a lot for power, especially when you have to import it. It's just a supply and demand issue. So if we look at if we look at wind energy is, they got these big turbines, and they're not very efficient. They're saying that it costs about 5 cents per kilowatt hour to produce power out of a windmill, a wind turbine. But I don't know where they're getting that number because it takes 6 years to even pay for the thing. And then the maintenance on it is absolutely really expensive and a lot. And if the wind doesn't blow, you don't generate anything. If the wind blows too much, they automatically shut down because they can't handle high winds. They kill birds out of the sky, and if you just look that up on the internet, you can see that those things killing, soaring birds. I thought it was ridiculous until I saw it on the, because if you search anything on the internet, obviously it's true, right? So how many I'm sorry, somebody's trying to text me. I just wanted to look and see how many windmills we'd actually have to supply the energy that we need in the United States currently, and understand that that's going to go up dramatically because of everything turning electric. If we have electric vehicles and we're going away from wood and we're going away from any other sources of heat, we have to have that replaced by electricity too. Everybody's getting more devices. It's just ridiculous. So if we were to go with all wind power, I can't find my number here, but I'll find it. It's right here somewhere. There we go. We would need 1.26 million, so 1,260,000 current turbines to produce enough electricity for the United States. That is a staggering number, obviously. And when you think about, if you've ever seen the movie WALL-E, it's a Disney movie. I think maybe it's Pixar. Anyway, where this little robot, is running around Earth picking up stuff, and the people are in the spaceship, and they come. It's a animated movie. It's a kids movie, but they have to crash through the satellites to get to the Earth, and it's covered in wind generators and trash and solar panels and everything. That's what I view as 1.26 million wind turbines. And then they only last, even if, according to what I could find, they only last for about 20 years. So they like to say that they're extremely cheap, but they cost, a couple $1 million per turbine just to put one up, and then you're paying somebody to use the land, and then you have to dispose of this. Now they say that all the materials or most of the materials in this is recyclable, but in the United States, we tend to do the least expensive thing, at least at the end of a process, right? We do the most expensive thing at the beginning. We don't care how much it costs. We're going to go wind all the way, right? Even though it's more expensive, that, as far as I can tell, in actual cost than almost anything else as far as generating power. And you have these ugly windmills all over the West. That would, not only that, but you have to then have a line from every one of these windmills to a central location and then store that wind when it's not blowing. And it's just not practical. I don't even know why we're actually going down that road of windmills. So then you have solar power. So we could go to all solar, right? The problem with solar is it's not really about the solar panel itself being better or more efficient. I was listening to a podcast with Elon Musk, and he was talking about how there's only so many photons or whatever that come from the sun in one given area, right? So you can't, if you catch all of them, that's all you can do. And we're almost to all of them now. We're almost to that kind of efficiency, like 95% efficiency in catching all that in a solar panel. So that means that the only way you can generate more electricity is by covering more area. So you could see, putting windmills, now I'm stuck on windmills in my head, putting solar panels on top of every single building or every roof. In cities, yes, I can see that. That's very expensive to do, and you also have to hook that to the grid somehow. So I guess if every building was able to use it for their own building, I just don't think that even the area of the top of a building will produce enough electricity for a big, huge building. I could be wrong about that, but let's say you cover all of them. The cost of that is huge. And what they're really wanting to do now is cover the West with solar farms. That's the big deal. They're paying people to put solar farms on their property. So you take this incredible landscape that we have out here in the West, and you're going to cover it with 10,000 acres of glass. I didn't even figure out what that would take to run the country on solar, but it would be, obviously you'd have to cover half of the West or something to do that. So that doesn't make any sense either. Now, the cost of electricity from solar, I was able to get a little bit better cost on that, even though I'm not sure if this is accurate too. When you take into consideration these green energy programs, it's really hard to tell what the actual cost is. I'm not sure what the cost is that they're using. Like, how are they getting 11 cents per kilowatt hour from solar? I'm not sure. I mean, you got all night long where you're not generating power. So you have to put batteries on it. Or you got acres, thousands of acres where you got to run lines to the solar panels. I don't know that cost can be correct. I don't know if they're figuring, like, after you have it all set up and all the solar panels are out there and all the grid patterns are in there and all that kind of stuff, then, it would cost 11 cents, not including any of the costs that you actually have. I'm not sure. So that is solar. Now, I'm not against solar. In fact, I think I might put that on my house because I don't see any of what I'm talking about actually going to happen. So when you look at the most efficient and best way to produce enough electricity to actually bring down the cost of electricity so that we can actually, when you look at your electric bill anymore, over the last 4 or 5 years, mine has doubled for sure. Now, obviously, we're using more power, but the cost of that power has gone way up. So the other thing that we can look at is nuclear energy. Now, this scares everybody, but nuclear energy, and it scares people because it produces a waste product. they take uranium or plutonium or whatever, and they use that in a nuclear reactor, and you have a waste product after that that is radioactive. And it stays radioactive for, let's say 100,000 years or hundreds of thousands of years or whatever. So long after we're ever going to need it, right? So everybody's afraid of this stuff. And they're also afraid of accidents that can happen with nuclear energy, where you have, Chernobyl. That's always a big one that we hear about. And we got to remember, Chernobyl, though, is reactor technology from the 60s. I mean, I believe. I could be off a little bit, but it's really old nuclear technology. So number one, you have that. But you also have anyway, so nuclear energy, everybody's against that in the United States because it has that waste product, and they're afraid of that the problems with having like a big blow up or something. But nuclear technology is actually, as far as I can tell, massively cleaner than most of the things we have. In fact, it doesn't have emissions. Other than radiation, you don't really have emissions with nuclear energy. So it's counted in the safe non-emission category along with wind and solar. Now, the one thing about nuclear energy is you can set these plants up in a place where you already have a plant of some kind to replace it. So you have transmission lines coming all to there. You don't have to cover thousands and thousands of acres with solar panels or put up 1.3 million wind generators and then run lines to all of them. You can set up a nuclear power plant right where the transmission lines are right now for an existing thing like coal. But nuclear power plants generate a vast amount more electricity for way, way less money. Let's look at the cost. So the new advanced nuclear power is 0.07 cents per kilowatt hour, roughly. And the reason I say new advanced nuclear power is because that was, we're talking about newer technology here, not the old stuff that we had in the 60s or 70s. But here's the real kicker with this, okay? You have 1.26 million wind turbines to produce enough electricity for the United States. You need a total of 470 at 467 nuclear power plants to supply the entire United States with power. And that's with all the millions of people on the east and west coasts. Obviously, that's very concentrated areas, so you're going to need a lot more power there. That is a total, 467, if you replace them with nuclear power plants. Also, we're already using nuclear for 20% of the U.S. electricity. So more than half of emissions-free electricity comes from nuclear energy. It would take 800 wind turbines to replace one nuclear reactor. So one nuclear reactor, which takes up a very small footprint, can be in one location with transmission lines already there, or you come to one spot and you have, I think it's 1,000 megawatts for one plant, something like that, per hour. It replaces 800 wind turbines. Now, when you think of a wind turbine, you don't think of, sometimes I think of these windmills, and I don't realize how big they are until you start driving underneath them or something. And they are absolutely huge. I mean, if you've ever seen one wind turbine propeller going down the interstate on a semi, it is unbelievably long. They're astoundingly huge. So you replace 800 of those with one nuclear power plant. Why in the world are we using wind for that? It doesn't have emissions. The waste product from nuclear power plants, everybody is very concerned about this. Let me go back to my thing here. The waste, let's see, where we got... okay. So here's the waste that comes from a nuclear power plant. The generation of electricity from a typical 1,000 megawatt nuclear power plant, which would supply the needs of more than 1 million people, one plant would, produces only 3 cubic meters of vitrified high-level waste per year. So that's 3 cubic meters. That's so right here. So 3 of these, 3 literally this size of waste. We're using coal right now. So if you had, in comparison, a 1,000 megawatt coal-fired power station produces approximately 300,000 tons of ash and more than 6 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. So you're going from that to 3 cubic meters of waste. Now I would say, somebody might say, well, yeah, but windmills don't have any waste. Are you kidding me? I mean, you have a thing that's as big as a building, and you have 800 of them per nuclear power plant. What are you going to do with it? They only last 20 years. They're all, in fact, a lot of them in the West right now are actually getting to the end of their life. What are they going to do with them? Are they going to melt them down? So right now in the United States, we don't even recycle the uranium that comes out, that goes through these excuse me, these nuclear power plants, where you can recycle it and burn it again. So this is a way that I think that you can make the country more electricity, electricity is a future product, right? We're headed towards everything being electric. So either we go down the path we're going down now, which is make it really hard for people to create nuclear energy, waste a whole bunch of money on absolutely terrible technology like windmills, and cover the entire West with solar panels and windmills until we can't see the ground anymore, and then have to replace it all in 20 years. Or we go with something like this. But still, this is talking future. So future is electricity, right? We'll kind of see that happening. So we can either pay other countries to produce electricity for us, and guess who gets to bear that burden? The cost is the average working person, because our costs of everything, the food that gets trucked all over the country, that's up. You have, and we're going to get to that in a minute, the power of any building, of any business, of everything that we do, any machine that we use to produce a good is all electricity. Sorry, I got a little tickle there. I apologize for that. I didn't mean to cough in your face. So that's the future, but I think people are jumping so far ahead that they haven't even gotten to this point yet, right? They're like, let's make all electric cars, everything electric in the world, let's heat everything electric. They're not even going to hear how we're going to produce that electricity. But there's also a step that needs to happen before this, and that is work with existing energy costs. So we're going to head towards electricity, but to make this world safer and actually give the people that live here the ability to drop their energy costs even more right now, we have to deal with something that actually feeds the world, and that's oil. Now, oil is a non-renewable resource, okay? It is a finite thing. But right now, around the world, we have countries like Russia, Iran, places like that, who are funding their entire programs, which are mostly against us and a lot of other people, from oil. So you can drop the cost of everything in our country and keep us safer by doing these two things. First, did I freeze? Am I frozen? Oh, there we go. I'm back. Anyway, so let's go back to oil. The first step I think that needs to happen is we need to not only drill for oil, but think about what's going to happen with oil. We need to become an exporter of energy, not an importer of energy. We're an importer of everything. We're an importer now of our food, a net importer of our meat. And what happens with that is then we end up being subject to or beholden to or dependent on countries around the world. I want to show you something. If we drill for oil and become an exporter of oil, then I believe we'll make the world safer, because we will take away a product that countries like Iran, make their money on. And I'm not saying anything against the people of Iran, but the governments of Iran and the big shots of Iran are taking millions, well, not millions, billions of dollars from oil and using that to fight us. So, and go against the rest of the world. So let's see. I forgot where I was here. Where is my thing? Oh, there it is. Okay. I was going to show you guys what the cost of gasoline is in Iran. It's $1.36. It took me a few calculations because they do it by the liter and they're in their currency, but it's $1.36 a gallon for gasoline. Now, what would happen to your costs, your everyday costs, if the cost of your fuel was $1.36 a gallon? The cost of your goods that were shipped was $1.36 a gallon. That's absolutely incredible. And the reason that cost is down is because the oil, they're an exporter of energy, an exporter of oil energy. So we have huge, massive reserves of oil in Alaska, Montana, Wyoming, places like that. And they've actually had to loosen up and start drilling because the price of gas was going up so high. It was hurting a few people politically, and they had to loosen up on their grip there. I feel, in my personal opinion, this is what needs to happen. We need to become an exporter of oil first. I believe that would make the United States an extremely wealthy nation. It would benefit the people, the working people of the United States, because the costs of everything they have would go down. And it's not just the price of oil that does that. It's the fact that who's selling the oil. So the reason the price is down so far in Iran is not only because they produce more oil or dig up more oil, but because they're selling it, so they're making money off of it. When you have to buy it from somebody else, the country does, or companies do, and then we have to use it, it's way more expensive. And then they shut down the pipeline. I did a video this morning where I was standing on the pipeline that's outside my house here, the oil pipeline. That pipeline, you can't hear, you don't see it. It's you can kind of see a little hump of you, and then there's a sign every, I don't know, 300 yards or half a mile, kind of depends where it is, just to tell you there's a pipeline there, right? It has almost zero environmental impact right now at all. The only emissions it has to move that oil is whatever's pumping it at one end, right? Or wherever the pumps are. That's the only emissions they have. And it's not running up and down the road or on the railways, because as soon as they shut down the Keystone Pipeline, then it had to go on the railways. The railways wear out, and the machines that do it wear out. It just doesn't make any sense what we're doing in this country, okay? And I think we got to go down that road. If you don't like oil as far as environmental impact, think of the environmental impact that we're having covering this whole country with stupid things like windmills and solar panels out on the range, covering the land with glass and all that. Sorry. Dang. Okay. So I'm going to look at some questions here, and then we're going to talk about why this isn't happening already. It's very sad that it's not happening. All right, so in 1970s, the move to the gold standard, and the federal loaned trillions of U.S. Treasury to pay for useless wars and bank. Well, somebody said, so Jeremy said, Jeremy says that we have to be careful about using up our resources. Yes. So what I'm talking about here is a two-step process. First, you have to use what we're currently using for energy, which is oil. Use it to enrich the country and bring down costs to the people who will then produce more. Because the people like me, whose costs of living have gone up so vast, such huge amounts, mainly because of government spending, but also because we don't make anything locally. Everything has to go through massive companies so they control the prices anymore. We're importing our power and energy, which means we have to pay Mexico and Canada for our energy, and we have to pay countries like Saudi Arabia for our oil when we have oil here. Just because we're using up a resource, whether we get it from here or not. So the actual wise thing to do in my mind would be to start with oil. That's what the world runs on right now, and then move towards nuclear energy, clean nuclear energy. And I say that because I can say that it's clean nuclear energy, so that we can become not only energy independent, but also an exporter of energy in this country. That would benefit all of us because the costs would go down. Now, that's not the only way. The government has to stop spending money like it's drunk on the Federal Reserve. I don't know what they're thinking, but anyway, they have to stop doing that. That is what's causing inflation. So everything is kind of on layering on top of itself. You have energy costs are up, but also you have labor costs are up and inflation is up. And those two probably coincide because inflation is the devaluation of the dollar. It's not actually, things aren't getting more valuable. The buying power of the dollar is going down because they're printing money at the bank. Hold on. So this is only one aspect, but it can be done fairly soon. The oil thing can be done fairly soon. If you build a pipeline to where you can transport it without all the emissions that have to do with that, you become an exporter of that. You take away the control of the countries right now that have us and Europe over a barrel because we have to all buy oil from them. You take away their power by making it yourself. And I'm going to come back to this at the very end. Only problem is it does not produce much tar. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So if we look at this in just simple terms, this is what really needs to happen. And yet, because of this movement of green, the green movement is actually becoming very ungreen. I mean, which was very evident when they went to the Olympics and they tried to do everything green there. One of the problems is they view meat as bad for the planet. We can talk about that on a different day, which is completely ridiculous when you actually look at the science of it. But this is another aspect. We're causing ourselves to have to pay more for energy when we could make it ourselves extremely cheap. And the cheaper energy gets, the lower costs go for the average American person, because it's not really, in a lot of ways, it's not really about how much you make. It's about how much you spend. And if you have to spend $1,000 more on power, and because you're not just spending it, when you're buying power, electricity, and fuel, you're not buying it just at the grocery store right here at home. You're not paying for the electricity for your home. You're paying for propane or natural gas. You're also paying for it at the grocery store because everything had to be shipped in there. You're paying it when you buy building products because that had to be shipped in there. It costs money and fuel to create everything. The farmer out in the field, diesel is probably his biggest cost other than fertilizer. So those are energy costs and the energy that it takes to make fertilizer, which it does take energy to make synthetic fertilizer. So everything that we're doing now would go down if you reduce the cost of energy. That's why I'm bringing this up. But I don't see us just going right to electricity. I think we need to start with oil, build our infrastructure of electricity so that we can move over to it for the future. That's my thoughts. So why isn't this happening right now? Well, right now, the people in power and the companies in power are creating a system where there is no free market or opportunity. If you actually think that we can't get in 2024 a vehicle of any kind that gets much better than 35 miles to the gallon, like a car, right? It's like here's a hybrid car. We're going to add lithium batteries, which we can get into mining lithium right now in Afghanistan. As soon as we pull out of Afghanistan, I was just reading this. China immediately came in to make a deal with the Taliban because they want that to control the lithium for us to use, because we don't like to create stuff where we can see it, where we can control the emissions on it. We don't like that. We want them to create that way over there overseas and have to be subject to these other countries or dependent on these other countries like China to buy our lithium batteries for our solar panels or electric cars. Not that I'm against electric cars. I'm just saying this thought process is not right. And it's leading us down a bad road where we could have an amazing future of success in the United States and opportunity. But every time somebody comes up with an idea to make a car go, let's say, 80 miles to the gallon or run on some alternative fuel like water, because there's been a few of those, either the government or some other agency like oil will purchase that patent and just sit it on a shelf. And that happens even in the food industry. If somebody comes up with a good idea and they start selling locally, pretty soon they make a successful business out of it, and then a company that's massive comes in and buys them out because that eliminates the competition. So what you have to have for capitalism and free markets to work is you have to have competition. Well, competition doesn't exist when you only have massive global corporations who actually control everything, because they just kind of collaborate with the other four corporations doing the same thing and nobody really competes. Whereas if you have local markets, local and regional markets, they have to compete because that many people can't collaborate. Let's just say that. So we need to go back to producing things ourselves, producing things in this country, producing things and exporting rather than trying to feel good about ourselves because it's not happening here, it's happening across the world, which doesn't make any sense to me, because if you mine something in the United States, you have to abide by an incredible amount of regulations and laws. Whereas if you mine something in Saudi Arabia, probably don't care about emissions. And it's the same world we're living in. It's not like the emissions over there don't affect us over here at some point. So we need to start doing that. The same thing we need to do with our food supply. If any disaster happens, we need to have a food supply that is here. When COVID happened, all across the country in many places, there was a shortage of meat on the shelves of grocery stores, but not here in Montana. We grow food. It's right here. Now, even though most of it's shipped out and shipped back in, I never saw that. In fact, I didn't even pay attention because I have a cow in my freezer, right? So when you have that personal responsibility for your food supply, for products that you absolutely depend on, and it's not from somewhere else. Now, certain things we're going to have to get from somewhere else. I don't think we can grow coffee in the United States. And I'm fairly set on drinking coffee. So exporting things is great. Importing and exporting is great. It's taking away self-reliance of our country that really gives us the headache and costs the working people is what it does. Anyway, so hopefully, yeah, facts hurt feelings. Somebody said, facts hurt feelings. Yes, they do. I'm sorry, they do. This is just the way things are. This is the reality. I don't think anybody will do this. I think Trump will actually try because he doesn't care. He's going to try to put tariffs, which is one way to bring back local economies because tariffs make it more expensive to outsource things. But and he tried to put the Keystone Pipeline in there. That would be fantastic because right now the railroads are making that. Oh shoot, we're locked up again. Oh yeah, come on. Somebody tell me if am I frozen or is it just on my screen that it's frozen? There we go. I'm back, I think. All right. So anyway, if I could just do whatever I wanted to make America great, right? And help the average American person, the person who actually makes this country operate, the rural people, the blue collar people, the ones who are working, making things, doing things, who actually run this economy. I'm sorry, those are the people that run this economy. Government spending does not run the economy. When they look at all these jobs that somebody's created, look at how many of them are created by the government. That is tax dollars that we, the people who actually work, create things, make things, drive industries, all of the tax dollars generated from that go to the government that actually make those jobs. That's a circular reasoning if you're counting that as actually industry. So I'm thinking, how do we help the people of that make this country go? Well, number one, you make it successfully financially. So the people will benefit if you export oil, excess oil. Not only will the price of oil go down, it will go down here and not wherever you're exporting it because you can sell it to them for full price. Just look at Alaska. They pay their citizens about $1,300 a year just for living there as an extra dividend from the oil that they produce in Alaska. So it's there's benefits. Like somebody texted me or mentioned something. Well, oil is, it's already down to $70 a barrel. Yes, it's lower cost, but who's selling that oil? That is what makes more of a difference than the price of the barrel. Because I can guarantee if it's $70 a barrel, Iran's $1.36 gas is not, they're not paying $70 a barrel for it. So it's all about that. And then, yes, I think electricity is fantastic and we use it all the time. It's such a convenient thing. You flip on a light switch, you plug something in, you turn on it. Electricity is a modern marvel, but we cannot create an industry of things like electric cars and electric heat without actually having a way to produce the electricity for low enough cost that we don't kill the middle class and lower class in the country to do it. Anyway, those are my thoughts on how to make everything cheaper. I know I've kind of went off the deep end on this, but I thought I would share it with you and see what you guys thought of the way I'm thinking. I'm actually going to be doing a series on I'm finding products that are made here. And actually I'm going to sell some t-shirts. I've got some t-shirts being made and some sweatshirts and other gear that's made in the United States. That's hard to find. It's more expensive right now. It's more expensive. And that's because we have higher costs in the United States. People demand more for wages. People have to spend an extraordinary amount for groceries. We have much more lavish lifestyles. which costs more to produce stuff. But I still care deeply about putting my money back into communities and this country rather than exporting my dollars to one or two people like Jeff Bezos or somebody at the expense of the rest of the country. So you'll be seeing those t-shirts and gear coming out. I'm also going to go do a video next week, which won't come out for a little while because I'll have to edit it, but it should be really cool about going from a product that's going to come from a ranch in Montana, stay in the United States all the way through production, and then I'm going to show you the end product. Well, I'm going to show you the end product when I start. Then I'm going to show you the process of how it's made here in the United States. This is the kind of things we need to do. And it starts, I believe, with ending government spending that's ridiculous and these green programs that aren't actually green. That's it for me. I'm Trinity Vandenaker. Have a great night, guys. Thanks for being on. Maybe I'll stay on here in a little bit and just kind of read some of your comments and chat with you for just a little bit here. So. Well, so somebody's talking about here about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The problem is right now there's an attack on the Constitution. We're really trying to throw that away completely. So that's too bad. Because I believe in our country. I really do. I believe in the greatness of our country. I want to see it succeed. I want the government in our country to be a place that protects the people who to give them opportunity to succeed, produce things, grow their businesses, innovate. And that's right now, we really don't have that. We're losing that in our country, that ability to do that. We still have it. It's just much more difficult. Green in color, not in political. Yeah, exactly. Stay green in color. Let's keep everything green. Let's not cover it. Every time I drive around Montana, I see these huge wind farms, and I know, ranchers and farmers, they're thinking about putting solar farms on their places because they get paid to do it, and they can't make hardly any money farming. And that's sad. It's like, I do not want to see the West covered in windmills and solar panels. Just not. So we don't have to, Jeremy says, love your thoughts. The only thing is we have to get rid of corporate America. No, we don't. We have to. Here's the problem with this process. And I always used to think that business, because I'm conservative, that business is always good, no matter what. The problem is it isn't. Business is good until it gets to a certain size. And this is why a lot of this doesn't happen, because as businesses get so big, where they can dictate an industry. It's like the beef industry, where they get so big they can dictate an industry. They have billions and billions of dollars at their fingertips that are running at their disposal. And they use these billions of dollars because they're making so much money then to either buy out competition, force competition out of the market through price manipulation, or through lobbying and government regulation, or literally buying off judges or candidates or representatives. So when you can't have them that big, and that's why we have antitrust laws in our country, meaning we don't even need any more laws to eliminate this. We have laws on the books that say you can't be a monopoly, you can't control an industry, because it's no longer capitalism at that point. When you don't have competition, when you eliminate competition, when somebody completely controls an industry and it's centralized all the way up to the top, that's not free market. That's not competition, and it's not capitalism. So that is part of the role of government, in my opinion, is to create an atmosphere where people can actually. So when you say corporate America, you may have to restructure corporate America, the banking system has definitely got to change. And I don't know if that will change, but I'm just talking about energy here would definitely help all of us. It would change the economic outlook of this country drastically if we change this energy thing. But corporate America would just have to change somewhat. It just needs to be, um, they need to take the companies that are monopolies and break them up like they're supposed to anyway, so that you don't have somebody control to restore actual competition. So yes or no, I guess, on your question there, or statement. Let's see. Always try to buy local and read the label always. Yeah. So the problem in the United States with labels is the USDA doesn't require, at least in the meat industry, doesn't require country of origin labeling. So it says it's US. It says US right on it, but it might be from Brazil or Australia. We don't have any idea. They supposedly have passed a law that will change, but they've kicked the can down the road to 2026, so it won't change until at least then. And they'll probably come up with another reason why that can't happen. So really, one of the only ways you can really know what you're buying as far as food and where it's coming from is by buying directly from a person that you know is local, or like a place like Marbled in Billings or Old Salt here in Helena. Places like that. Now with clothing and things like that, you can very often find out where it's made by reading the labels. So absolutely. Yeah. And we could fix this problem. Somebody said we could fix this problem in 1 year if people stop feeding the beast. It's this ideology of the Green New Deal, which basically means the Green New Deal is actually even worse because they want to take all of us out in the country, eliminate all of us and put us in big cities so we can be happy riding our bicycles around, while the filthy rich control everything else. So it's just ridiculous. But anyway, government is good. It's a few individuals at all levels of government that screwed us over. Federal government needs to shrink by at least 75%. Yes, I don't believe all government is good, and I think our founding fathers were absolutely brilliant in the way they set up the structure of our government in the United States, because they really made it very difficult for one or two people or one or two agencies to control everything. For somebody to really get control of the whole thing. Now, right now, we're dealing with some problems because you have the deep state. You've got a lot of people making a ton of money off of being super corrupt. That's really hard to change. And they can really dictate a lot of what happens in the country, but just really hard for them to control all aspects at the same time. Which also means there's a lot of times when you really think, well, this person should really do this, or the government should do that. And they really can't, because they're kind of stuck. And I think that's by design too. The government shouldn't have enough control to completely unstick everything, because then they would have enough control to do whatever they wanted to you. So I think they have the government set up in a way that it trips over itself a lot, which is by design, or at least it could be by design, and I like it. I don't know about, so country of origin labeling. Somebody asked if it's finally going to happen. I'm not positive. I mean, it like I said, it did pass, but who knows if they're actually going to do that. Yeah, everything needs to be, Bob says, everything needs to be returned to we the people, because the corruption of the deep state politicians that control think should be their slaves, and we have little freedom left in the land of the free. I think it's easier. I think it's something that can be changed around, and it could be very soon. We'll see. I'm excited about it, possibly. So Yeah, somebody said, well, the only thing you need to know about the crony capitalists is that you'll find them on K Street. I mean, I found it interesting because I was reading the yeah, of all the stuff I'm reading. I mean, they're trying to take over a public land in the name of this private land, even trying to take over the natural processes of the land. But then at the same time, uh, to save it, to conserve everything. And their idea of conserving it is destroying it, in my opinion. And at the same time, they want to cover it with all this, solar panels and windmills, which are inefficient and cover the land. 1.1 million wind turbines to, 800 just to make enough electricity that one nuclear power. Can you imagine the amount of material that it takes to build? Not only transport, not the fuel is transporting them, not all the infrastructure that you have put in, the amount of material that's just in building one wind turbine that's as big as a skyscraper, and then setting it up and all that. And they say that nuclear energy has way more waste. I don't believe that. So somebody's saying, really enjoyed my channel and what someone to say, click and just tuned in. And now, as soon as Donald Trump gets back into office, you will lower the fuel prices and make everything cheaper. I hope so. I really do. I mean, if this can happen, I believe this is what Trump is going to do. Is very close to what I just laid out. And if that happens over the course of several years, you will see a massive difference in the wealth in this country of the middle class, because if you lessen that pressure on them, if you take the pressure of cost off of them and allow them some freedom to do things and spend money, because spending money that we actually make in jobs and work, spending it back into the economy is what fuels the economy. So absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to hop off of here. And it was great seeing everybody. Great talking to you. Hopefully you have a great night. Thanks for being with me. And God bless. Okay. One more thing before I go, even though now I just dismissed all everybody, so they probably jumped off. But one more thing before I go, go to my website and join my locals community, because I'm going to start talking about things and hopefully encouraging people, because I know things are stressful. Things are stressful in my life. When your income is way down and things are just astronomically expensive, you can get depressed. You can get overwhelmed, and we have to stick together. So in my community, I post content. I try to be encouraging. I'm going to start doing a Bible study. I'm not sure how often that will be. It will either be, I don't think I can manage it every day yet, content wise, time wise, but hopefully a couple times a week. I'll try to put out a schedule so you can see when I will do that on my locals community as well. And hopefully we can do that live so you guys can join in. Make sure you go join. That keeps me going as well. If you're able to support it, it's free. If you want to just join and get the notifications and everything, you won't be able to. If you want the full experience to interact, you can join as a supporter. And then also, we will put a code. We'll send out a code by email. So if you join on lifeinthewest.com, if you join the email list, we'll send out a code for a free month in that email. So make sure you go join that right away so you can get that code to the full experience. And then you can choose whether you want to stick with it or not. But all right, so that's it. Go to lifeinthewest.com to find out more about that. Have a great evening. I'm going to actually get off this time. So have a great evening. God bless.